Well, it finally happened. Dominic Mysterio and company have finally turned on Finn Balor. And it looks like we're going to be getting a match at WrestleMania, Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio. But sadly, no Intercontinental Championship is on the line unless Penta gets involved, which is still very possible. But I'm a big fan, just on principle, of one-on-one at WrestleMania. That said, again, I'm not going to have a fit if Penta is involved to put the Intercontinental Championship on the line. And honestly, that seems the most likely. So a really nice segment there. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Seth Rollins debacle of more mystery men continuing to multiply in WWE. We'll talk about the women's side of things and the tag team championship #1 contenders and all the rest of it. We're going to get into all of that, but first I want to welcome you to the show and also remind you that if you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast is where you go for that, as we offer every show that we do ad-free for you. Just head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Now, let's get into Monday Night Raw. I think overall it was an okay show. It still doesn't feel like we're less than 40 days now till WrestleMania, but perhaps that'll change as we get closer. Sometimes the build does wait till last second. Sometimes it never comes at all, and sometimes it comes early. And right now, I would say it's running a little bit late. But we've got some stuff to talk about here, as Monday Night Raw emanated from Seattle, Washington. That's where it was, at the Climate Pledge Arena. Oh my God. They actually I'm going to just leave that alone. So we have Adam Pearce in the ring. He said he had some unfortunate business to attend to, and he asked Seth to join him. A masked mystery man arrived and stood on the broadcast table. Over a dozen masked men then hopped over the barricade and joined him in the ring. And we had then the fans chant "Holy S," which was totally unwarranted. Seth eventually was revealed as one of the men. He had masked. He stood there with Pierce, and he said they see eye to eye, and that he doesn't like the vision. But he asked or said the masked men attacking are unacceptable. Pierce said Rollins isn't medically cleared and questioned what would happen if the Vision members got their hands on Seth. We then had Logan Paul and Austin Theory make their entrance and essentially said there's a bullet with Seth's name on it. And they climbed the ring apron, and that's when Rollins put his mask on, and the other masked men joined him in the ring. They all shuffled so that nobody could see which one was Rollins, and then they all exited the ring. So we played Ring Around the Rosie here, and that's when LA Knight's theme played. He came out and fought with Paul and Theory, and they started to get the better of Knight before Jimmy and Jay come out to help clear Theory from the ring, and they set up for a 1D on Paul, but Theory pulled him out to the floor, and Jay's entrance music played, and he and Jimmy then played up to the crowd. That was not all they did on Monday night, as we'll see at the end of the show. But I have mixed feelings about this masked man. Actually, they're not really mixed. I mostly feel that this version of the Masked Man series has more than run its course. I'm not sure why they feel the need to even put Seth in this position. Does Seth have to run away from what Adam Pearce has to say? Is he afraid of what Adam Pearce is going to say? Probably that if he continues to do what he's doing, he'll have no choice but to suspend him because he's quote unquote not medically cleared. That's, I guess, what the idea is Seth, after all he's done in the business for how many years, now has to resort to anonymity to show up on the show? What are we doing? Why is the crowd, they should boo this. I was hoping that the chants were not saying holy S, that it was saying something else. This is, I'm sorry, it's garbage as far as what Seth should be able to be doing here. And it's only, by the way, a 2-on-1 scenario if Seth is that worried too about the Vision. Paul Heyman's, not that he was ever a physical threat, but he's gone. Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, gone. Now we have Logan Paul and Austin Theory. And you also have common enemies that you can align with, like LA Knight and obviously the Usos. So what exactly is Seth gaining here by showing up as an anonymous masked man? What's happening here? I'm not sure. We haven't even really heard from Seth either. He's been back for a few weeks now, and we haven't even heard from him. What are we doing? Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're buying time to see if Braun Breaker is somehow miraculously available, because that would be the clearest, best match for Seth and the one they were seemingly eyeing prior to his return and prior to the Braun Breaker injury. So perhaps they are buying time to see if, hey, can you heal another couple weeks? We'll buy you more time on TV. Seth won't really target anyone specific. He'll just be targeting the vision as a whole and see what Doc says. Maybe that's what they're doing. But for now, I don't like the masked man stuff. I'm a fan of Seth Rollins and his return, but the masked method is totally unnecessary and really illogical. Really illogical. And also, who are these dudes? Are we ever going to find out? I mean, they're just seemingly local talent. There's one of them that is very overweight. That is really funny. That's been making the rounds. It's something about, when they, something about hiring you for a job that you shouldn't be getting a job for or something. I don't know. But nonetheless, Seth is running and hiding, and it doesn't really fit his personality right now at all. And anyway, I mean, if Adam Pearce also wanted to tell him something, there's email, there's, text, or he'll just announce it on the air. It doesn't have to have Seth there to make it valid or whatever. So let's move on. There's more to talk about here. We got Lyra versus Io versus Bayley versus Raquel versus Asuka versus Ivy Nile in a gauntlet match for a shot at the Women's Intercontinental Championship. The eliminations were as follows. Lyra was eliminated by Io Sky in 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Rodriguez was eliminated by Io Sky in 16 minutes and 5 seconds. And that's after Sky caught Rodriguez in an inside cradle. And then Rodriguez attacked Sky after and gave her a Tejada bomb on the ring apron. And 2 referees came out to escort Rodriguez to the back. And the 4th entrant was Ivy Nile. And Io Sky was eliminated by her in 17 minutes. Bayley was the 5th, and Ivy Nile was eliminated by Bayley in 28 minutes. Asuka was the 6th and final entrant, and Bayley put Asuka down with a Bayley to belly for a near fall. And we then had Asuka distract the referee while Bayley was down on the floor, and Kairi was about to attack Bayley, but Lyra Valkyria came out and shotgun drop kicked her, and Bayley returned to the ring and escaped an Asuka lock and got a rose plant and the 3 count. So Bayley is your new number 1 contender for the Intercontinental Championship. And that's interesting. So now you have AJ Lee and Bayley seemingly targeting one another at WrestleMania, but this does to me sniff and feel like, I'm sniffing it out, a triple threat where Becky Lynch is probably going to come in the back end and invoke her rematch clause or something. So you're probably going to have a triple threat here for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Because how can you build Bayley and AJ successfully for 3 weeks? Or said 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is. It's difficult to do given Bayley has been a side character for so long. There doesn't seem to be any legitimate beef there. You're not going to turn either of them heel at this point. So bringing back Becky into the storyline probably next week is how this is going to stir the drink, so to speak. She's going to be that straw. All right. So then we have already an hour 2, because that match lasted 37 minutes. Perhaps the longest women's match in multiple years. I don't even know the last time a match went that long, but ever for the women. But fine, great. A lot of wrestling on a wrestling show makes sense to me. But also, yeah, whatever happened to Bayley's personality disorder? That's on my review here from Pro Wrestling Net. That's a good point. They just kind of dropped that, which is fine. I don't need that. It was doomed from the start the way that it was presented. But Bayley just being Bayley is also fine. I don't think she's going to win anything, but she's one of the OGs of the women's revolution. She's a big name, but I know, the world knows they're not going to really do much with her at this point. At least there's no reason to believe that they will. So then we have, let's see, some backstage stuff. El Grande Americano and Danhausen had some interaction backstage. And Danhausen tried to take Americano's mask so he could try it on, but he stopped him. And Americano stopped him and told him it's wrong to touch a luchador's mask. And Americano struggled to come up with a word in Spanish, and Danhausen cursed Americano. So, fine segment. Fine. Penta then came out, and we got Penta versus El Grande Americano for the IC title. The match went, let's see, I don't have a timestamp here, but Penta ends up beating El Grande to retain the title. And the finish was Americano dominating the majority of the match. Penta rally, and then he hits a springboard Mexican destroyer for the victory. You know that this curse thing needs to gain a little bit of momentum, and the crowd's already responding to him positively when it comes to in-person. He hasn't yet had a match, but they seem to be moving along with him. And I had a bit of a monologue last night on my show where I said, hey, I might be wrong about this guy. I hope I am, because that would mean that this is a success and it's something totally different. And that could still be the case. This could still be a flop, but it's trending in the right direction and using a lot of metrics, including t-shirt sales and crowd reaction, which is obviously one of the top things you'd want to look at to determine if it's working. Okay, a promo video aired where Stephanie Vaquer was speaking in Spanish and subtitles were shown, which is totally fine. And she said Liv was made by the experts around her where she was forged in hell. Yeah, well, your tattoos certainly tell you that, don't we, Steph? Vaquer said that she sees more in Morgan than Morgan sees in herself. She said Morgan sees herself as a cheap blonde, and she said Morgan always takes the easy way. Vaquer then spoke in English while saying she would bring blood, sweat, and all of her experience to remain the women's world champion at WrestleMania. I had no issue with this promo. They continue to work very well together in building nice and steady up to WrestleMania. I think this is a really nice pairing so far. And I actually had people critique me or say, keep your religion out of it on I don't know, whatever, some platform. Well, no, it's I'm not preaching my own personal beliefs in religion at all. It's just looking at objective reality and observing that Stephanie Vaquer has demonic tattoos. That's just an observation. Like I'm not sitting here preaching anything to anyone. And she just does. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it. Would I get that? No. But that's not called preaching anything about religion. So if that offends you, then find another show. That's all there is to it. I mean, all right. So then we have AAA mega champion Dom and Liv and Raquel make their entrance. Dom takes the mic and demanded a rematch for the Intercontinental title. And Dom is back to being booed pretty good here. And he said he didn't want to do it in the ring, but Balor was making him air their dirty laundry in public because Dom was blaming Finn. Finn comes out and to a big reaction, and Dom asked Balor where he'd been. He said he hoped Balor was there to tell him that he got him a rematch for the Intercontinental Championship. And Finn asked Dom if he got it all out, and Balor conceded that Dom would be the Intercontinental Champion still if it weren't for him. Balor said he was sorry, but he was trying to help. He was trying to teach Dom a lesson. He said the Judgment Day's family, and they would always have Dom's back, and recalled Dom telling him he wanted to be the greatest Mysterio of all time. And he tried to guide Dom, but the more he helps, the more he realizes that Rey Mysterio was right. Maybe you are a spoiled little prick. and Dom shoved Balor, who responded with an overhead kick. Didn't really land well, but kind of immaterial there. Balor removed his jacket and grabbed Dom. McDonough pulled him away, and Dom charged towards Balor, who moved around McDonough. Eventually, all of the members, including the women, of course, because they're allowed to dish out punishment, but are never, ever allowed to take any. Make that make sense. But everybody joined in, beating down on Finn Balor, who eventually gets a frog splash, two of them, one with a chair, and that's that. So here we go. The moment that we've been waiting for, or at least thinking about, anticipating for years. How often do you say that? Years. It finally happened. We have Finn and Dom. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, Penta is probably going to be put into this. El Grande Americano. There's an outside chance El Grande is put into this to make it a fatal four-way. Again, we don't even have Finn versus Dom official yet, much less a triple threat, much less a fatal four-way. But you can kind of read the tea leaves and see perhaps where they're going. And they could easily make this a fatal four-way. At bare minimum, I think they'll make it a triple threat and throw Penta in there. But it happened. And I'm glad it did. I think that it was well executed. No complaints on anybody's end here. I think everybody played their part well. Finn has an uphill battle now, facing JD, facing Dom, and of course the women who are immune because they're women. So how is Finn going to approach this? I think bring in Penta. Level the playing field, knowing he's also an opponent for WrestleMania, but in the interim, helping him take out Dom and JD. Maybe having some tag team matches down the line here when we get closer to WrestleMania. So, good stuff. The analysis here, according to Pro Wrestling Net, it says a strong angle. I would have held off on Balor coming out to his old theme until after the others turned on him, but that's a minor quibble. I thought McDonough might be his own man to set up a triple threat involving the male Judgment Day members. I suppose it could still happen, but there was no hint during the angle. I don't know. JD, he's coming into his own, but I think Penta being involved to have it an IC title match is probably the path that they take. So we then have some backstage stuff with Javon Evans and Adam Pearce and Kingston, and I'm just going to move on. It's just not a big part of the show here. So Obafemi versus Rusev was the next match leading into the third hour. And the match was sadly really short. 3 minutes and 5 seconds with Obafemi beating him after the fall from grace. Clean win. Crowd was, and I'll agree with this analysis, was not as hot as they should have been. And at the same time, Rusev versus Femi, it doesn't really on paper grab your attention. I think it's maybe because we're still waiting for Brock and Obafemi. I feel like that's where a lot of people have assumed the company's going for WrestleMania, and so everything in between is just filler, and we know it. So perhaps that's why, but also the build for Femi Rusev. I mean, they did what they could, but it didn't exactly light the world on fire. So everybody knows this is filler. It's time that they're filling to help build Oba that is already over, and they know Rusev's going to lose. They're waiting for a big opponent. It's WrestleMania season, so you put all that together and you get a reaction that isn't as hot as some people think it should be. So, still a good victory for Obafemi. We then have CM Punk come out, and Punk said he wasn't sure if they'd be with him tonight. He delivered the stupid "great to be alive" line and hyped the crowd, mentioning the Seattle Seahawks. I can't believe CM Punk, at the point he's at in his career, that he still needs to rely on naming the city's sports teams to get a pop. Are we still doing that? Really? He still needs to fall on that? That's usually something that's done by heels to piss them off, which is at all times, at all levels, I think, acceptable. But if you're trying to get a pop from a crowd as a babyface to get them behind you, and using their sports teams, that is something that usually younger baby faces do to kind of manipulate the crowd. So I don't think Punk needs to be doing this, but maybe he was concerned that they wouldn't be with him. So Punk recalled that the World Heavyweight Championship was created because Reigns wasn't defending it frequently enough, which actually while that's true, I also think that it devalues the World Championship by just saying that. Like, we all know that. And it also wasn't just created. There is a lineage that WWE just chose to ignore. But just saying they created a title out of thin air because the other guy with the real title doesn't want to defend it just inherently devalues the championship that is now on Raw. Or that, wherever it may be, wherever it may live. It's, to me, not the best way to say it, but let's continue. He also talked about how he levels this place up. And Punk said, it's been on his mind all week. Unfortunately, I lowered myself to Roman Reigns' level. I don't know exactly how he did that, but okay. Jimmy and Jay then come out and join Punk in the ring, and Jay demanded that Punk apologize. Punk asked why Roman was still sending his cousins to do his heavy lifting, and Jay said he came out on his own and demanded that Punk apologize. Jimmy said it had nothing to do with Reigns, but everything to do with respect. Jimmy said he has a lot of respect for Punk, and he said Punk says what's on his mind and speaks from the heart. Jimmy said Punk can talk all the trash he wants to about Reigns, but he disrespected their late uncle, who has no voice. And he said, so apologize. Punk said Jimmy was right, and he said Jay was coming in a little hot, but Jimmy was right in that Sika doesn't have a voice. Punk asked if they believed their uncle could hear them, and the Usos said yes, and Punk said he respects Sika. He said he didn't know him as well as he knew Afa, and Punk recalled working for him and said that he was under the Samoan learning tree. He said it was a privilege to have Semu drop knowledge on him. So Punk said everyone in their family has shown him respect except that one son of a bee, and Punk said that if Sika can hear them, then he sees what a gaslighting, egotistical, plastic politician that Reigns is. Jay got fired up and told Punk they needed him to hear, I'm sorry. So, okay, before we get into that, some just massive logicals here. So the Usos come out because they were upset about what Punk said about Reigns last week, and specifically Sika, right? Except they just said that, well, you can talk all the trash you want about Roman. Well, that's what he's doing. How was he talking trash last week about Sika? He just said he's going to bury him next to his father. He's talking trash about Roman, the very thing that you just said you're okay with. Kind of weird. And then again, Punk was insulting Roman Reigns, yet the Usos said they're not out there because of Reigns. And Punk continues to insult Roman Reigns, and that's when they still get heated up. So which one is it, Usos? Which one is it? Kind of weird. And Punk shook Jimmy's hand, said he was sorry, did the same with Jay, and he was sorry, of course, you all know, which this is going to turn into, it's a sorry backhanded compliment, or a backhanded sorry, and that's what this was. He said he was sorry that Reigns treated them and the rest of their family like garbage for years and never once came out to apologize. He said he was sorry that Reigns disrespected Dusty Rhodes by calling him irrelevant, and he said he's sorry that Reigns tricked the Usos and the rest of the world into thinking he gives a damn about any of this. Punk said if Reigns did care, he'd be standing in the ring talking to him rather than having his young boys, and that's when all hell broke loose, and he got punched, I think, by Jimmy with a right hand. That was it. So the whole thing was about the line last week with CM Punk saying he's going to bury Roman Reigns next to his father. That's the whole thing. That's it. Really? I mean, he's threatening that line just inherently threatens the life of Roman Reigns. It didn't at the time insult anyone in their family. Anyone in their precious bloodline of a family that everyone should just apparently bend the knee to. But all it did was insult Roman Reigns and threaten Roman Reigns directly. No one else. And the whole segment here was built on they're mad about his line about the he's going to bury Roman Reigns next to his father. Again, where's the insult to the father here? Now, Punk did go on to insult Roman Reigns more, and that heated them up more. But you just told us the Usos are out there because of the family, not Roman. But all Punk's been doing is attacking Roman directly. That's it. So it was a little bit backwards. And I'm not sure where the Usos are going to stand here. I thought they were kind of on their own here in their own world, and now they're crossing over into multiple stories with the Vision, now with Punk, and also they're in a tag team where they're presumably chasing the tag titles. So the Usos got their hands in several different cookie jars here, and they're a great tag team, as we all know. Dare I say, a legendary tag team, but it's going to get messy as to where they end up at WrestleMania. I don't want them getting lost in the Punk Roman story. So hopefully this is not a long-term story for them, because they should have their own path. Chasing the tag titles is fine, and it should be actually where they go. But if they're just ringside for Roman and Punk, that would be very lame. And I would feel for Jimmy and Jay. That's not where they belong here. But again, I think Raw was effective enough to build things towards WrestleMania. I believe we do have Brock next week. So he'll have his first, hey, whoever wants to come out and fight me, and it'll be somebody that's underwhelming. I really, truly don't believe that it's going to be revealed until very close to, if not at WrestleMania, who his opponent is. It'll just, I think, string on, and Paul Heyman will come out at WrestleMania. And you'll have him talk about how the locker room's afraid that no one has stepped up over the last several weeks, and that Brock has instilled fear into every man in the locker room, and then he'll leave or about to leave. And that's when Obafemi or someone, obviously has to be a big name, come out. That's my guess. They could reveal the person next week, and then they build to that match towards WrestleMania. That also is an option. And many people have said that that's what they think is going to happen. Where maybe it's Obafemi who comes out next week. They don't wait at all, and they bring the person out so they can have promos and all the rest. That's very possible that they do that. So I'm leaning towards my result rather than the reveal being next week. But both are plausible. Both make sense. So I just throwing another option out there that seems to be counter to what most people believe. So, yeah, overall, again, a decent Raw. A bit of a short show here because I still need to get my head screwed on straight after my trip and recording last night and putting shows up and just, how it goes. So that said, guys, probably, again, a little bit shorter than normal, but I'll be back in the saddle later this week with the mailbag. So please send in your emails to mailbag@wwepodcast.com. If you are a patron, you get priority placement in the show. So let me know you're a patron by putting it in the subject of the email, or message me directly on Patreon. There's an in-app messaging service. That's also a great way to know that you want me to put your message on the mailbag. So if you want to join us over there, patreon.com/WWE podcast. I'd recommend you do it to get rid of the ads. But other than that, everybody, I apologize for the last week of just kind of here, there, and weird shows, but I think we're going to be finally back. We're back, and full steam ahead to WrestleMania 42. Follow me on X, by the way, wrestling_audio, or on TikTok or Instagram. Just search out WWE Podcast. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.